Alright, what's going on, guys? Today was Summer Games Fest, and although we didn't get any new Elden Ring news, there was one part of this show that I was hoping to keep an eye out for, and that was a new game heavily inspired by Bloodborne called Lies of P, coming from the studio Neowiz. It's a dark fantasy RPG inspired by the story of Pinocchio, and I remember when this game was first announced, the resemblance to Bloodborne was noticed immediately, but we have these Souls-likes come and go nearly every year, and typically when we finally get to play them, they don't live up to the hype whatsoever. But today we actually got to get hands-on with the game with the release of a new demo, and I gotta say guys, this game is one you're gonna want to keep your eyes on big time. So today I want to talk about my experience with the demo, walk you through what to expect in the world of Lies of P, and give you my verdict if I think this game is gonna live up to the hype, because from what I've experienced so far, this has the potential to be one of the best Souls-likes of all time. When the game starts, right off the bat, the first thing you're gonna notice is that it starts off like a Souls game. Immediately you're thrust into full control of your character, with no immersion breaking tutorial. The game controls exactly like the Dark Souls trilogy, and one of the things that stood out to me really quickly was how smooth and crisp the graphics and performance are. We have a really unique art style here. It's not very rigid, but it creates an air of mystery, and that's enhanced by the very good and stable performance that creates the deep immersion here. Throughout my entire time of the demo, I did not have a single frame drop. Now personally, I was playing this demo on PS5, but also on an incredible monitor, thanks to one of our channel's partners. Let me give a big shout out to the partner of today's video, BenQ and Mobiuz, for hooking me up with their new EX480UZ, and I gotta say this is the most advanced monitor I've ever played on. With a 48-inch 4K OLED screen, it takes the immersion to the next level, and 120Hz with FreeSync Premium guarantees a smooth experience while you're gaming. And their exclusive HDRI technology and light tuner allows you to adjust the picture however you like. And with other awesome features like dual input and screen adjustment, these are by far the best monitors on the market. So a big thank you to them for partnering with the channel, and now back to the video. When you finally rise from your chair and walk down the hall in Lies of P, you only get a little tidbit of what this world is. You are Geppetto's puppet, tasked with hunting down other volatile puppets throughout the area. And with that information, you're thrust into the combat of this game. Given a choice with 3 starting classes, one of dexterity, one of strength, and one of a balance of the two. But you already know I had to choose the strength build, which came equipped with a greatsword. But what became acutely aware to me right after being equipped with my weapon was that it feels like a Souls game. Where most Souls-likes feel clunky and unintuitive, this one felt natural as soon as I pressed the lock-on button. And since the game controls exactly like the Dark Souls trilogy, you'll be able to pick up on how to play it right off the bat. And that goes for beyond the combat as well. This game adheres to the Souls formula to a T, at least from what I've experienced so far. If you are a Souls veteran, you're gonna feel right at home. Now the game does have its fair share of innovations that we're going to touch on throughout this video, but the core is undeniably built on the things that made the Souls games. And like the Souls games, Lies of P does have a bit of a learning curve. It takes from Bloodborne in the aspect that while you're locked onto a target, your form of a dodge is a quick step, but while you're not locked on, you have a dodge roll. Now I do have to warn you that the quick step and the dodge roll are not as good as they are in Bloodborne, but there is a reason for that. That's because it's not your only means of evading damage. You also have the deflect and parry from Sekiro, and you'll have to learn how to combine the two. And while at first it may not seem like it works, once I got the hang of it, it felt so natural and fun to do. Although I do have a few nitpicks about it, we'll talk about those in a little bit. When I encountered the first mini-boss, I tried to play it just like a Dark Souls game, relying only on dodges and R1s. And at this point, I thought the game was going to be super clunky, and I was getting kind of infuriated at how short the dodge was. But that's because I was wrong about how to play it. You have to treat it like Sekiro as well, like I was saying, because the block and parry is going to be your best friend. But like Sekiro as well, there's also the addition of a posture system where your enemy becomes groggy. And while they're in this groggy state, you can hit them with a strong R2 to break their stance and have the option to follow up with a visceral attack. And when you get the chance to land these, man, it feels so good. But also like Sekiro is the addition of unblockable attacks, where instead of a death symbol appearing above their head, your enemy will glow entirely red. And your only way of avoiding damage here is with a perfect parry. The combat here also has some new innovations that take inspiration from other Souls games, like your puppet arm that can be outfitted with different kinds of tools like Sekiro, and then special weapon arts that look cool but I didn't find myself using very much. I think once we get deeper into this game and see the full potential of the build system, then these are going to come into play much more. I'll touch a bit more on the combat once we talk about boss fights, but for now let's switch to level design. Throughout my full 3-hour experience in this demo, I never got lost a single time. And that's not because the game was very strictly linear, it's just because it follows the exact same formula that we've seen time and time again in the Souls series. The level design here doesn't exactly do anything new, and you can take that as a good or bad thing, but how it felt for me was simply, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Because my mind was so heavily focused on trying to learn the combat that it was kinda nice to not have to worry about navigating a maze. If I had to compare the level design here to anything, to me it would be closest to Demon's Souls, where you're not constantly seeing bonfires everywhere, in this case stargazers, but instead your goal is to find shortcuts back to the original checkpoint, which was really nice because it made the level feel very interconnected. There are still lots of secrets and reasons to explore, such as this side quest with a weeping woman that I found, which I'm not going to spoil because it has a really cool moment. But beyond that, there's not a whole lot to say about the level design, at least yet. It'll be extremely familiar, and you can take that as a positive or negative, depending on how you like the sound of that. But now we gotta talk boss fights, and as with any Souls-like, this is where the game is going to shine the most. The first boss of the demo is the Parade Master, and I honestly think he was a fantastic first boss. But I will say that when I reached him for the first time, I still did not have my bearings on how the combat worked in this game. I was trying to play it exactly like Bloodborne, and with the short quick step, I was able to dodge some of his attacks, but I kept getting hit even when I thought that my reaction time was spot on. But like I mentioned earlier, things are gonna be a lot more fun and go a lot smoother if you treat it like Sekiro. More specifically, the big bosses of Sekiro, where sometimes it's going to be better to dodge, but others it's going to be better to block or parry. And when you finally figure that out, these boss fights are really going to shine. The hitboxes in these fights also felt fantastic. There really wasn't an instance where I felt like I got hit by something that wasn't my fault. Where in a lot of Souls-likes, the bosses can feel kind of uninspired and unfinished. All 3 of the bosses in the demo were incredibly fun to learn, and can even be compared side by side with some of the mainline Souls bosses. That may seem like a flavored statement, but I really enjoyed them. Now I do need to spoil the second fight because there's a lot to unpack here. While this is technically considered a mini boss fight, the fight against the Mad Donkey was incredibly fun. It's a humanoid fight against someone who has all the same tools that you do, and is also susceptible to all the same things that you are. You can dodge, he can dodge, you can parry, he can parry, you can backstab him and inflict status, and I was honestly sad because I ended up beating him my second try, and I didn't want the fight to end. I really hope there's more fights like this throughout the rest of the game, because it was a fantastic test of all aspects of the combat and brought the full potential of what this game can be into my vision. But once you beat the first boss, you'll be introduced to the main hub of the game, Hotel Krat. And here you'll meet your level up maiden as in any standard Souls-like, Sophia. And just like other things in this game, the level up system is almost identical to Dark Souls. You'll figure it out immediately. When it comes to Hotel Krat as a whole though, I'm sure it'll become more expansive in the final game, but there wasn't a whole lot to do in the demo besides upgrade your weapon or go hit some test dummies. There were a few NPCs that had some interesting conversations and got me curious about the world, but it also had my first little qualm with the game. Something about the voice acting felt a little bit off to me. Not that it's bad by any means, but when we're playing in a world that's a take on Italy, I wasn't really expecting to hear very Americanized voices.
Listen, pal. Nice landing, but
The game also doesn't tell you that once you reach Hotel Krat, you can no longer level up at the Stargazers. Since the framework of this game is verbatim a Souls game though, I was able to figure out that I had to go back and talk to Sophia, but I'd wager that for a player that doesn't have experience with the Dark Souls trilogy, they're gonna be running around for a while very lost. So I do hope they at least add a prompt that tells you to go talk to her. When you reach Hotel Krat for the first time though, you'll be introduced to a new mechanic of lying. Now I only found 2 opportunities to use this in the demo, so we don't know exactly how deep this mechanic is going to run, but I really hope that choosing to lie or tell the truth has some major consequences. It's not only a foundational part of the game's aesthetic, but also a crucial element of the Pinocchio story. There's also a cool mechanic where you can craft weapons and switch out the blades and hilts. Now, since the weapon selection in the demo was very small, I really have no idea how extensive this is going to be in the final product, so I can't really describe it much or give an opinion on this part. But let me go ahead and give my overall thoughts on this demo. The company did directly ask for feedback on the game, so here's my major point. The one thing holding this back from being a near perfect Souls-like is that the character needs to be sped up just a tiny bit. To me, the idle walking speed is extremely slow, and I found myself getting hit by attacks a few times that I thought I could have dodged because there's a moment of freezing when you're recovering from attacks. I'm not saying we need the Bloodborne quick step, because that's not supposed to be your only way to deal with attacks. I just feel like the movements are a little bit stiff and he needs to be more smooth. It's not a game breaker by any means because I do think the combat here is unique and isn't supposed to be straight up Bloodborne. I would just like to be able to have a little bit more control. But overall, I really can't complain much beyond that. As someone who normally doesn't like Souls-likes from studios other than From Software whatsoever, I thoroughly enjoyed this demo and encourage all of you to go give it a try. It got me very curious about the story and I want to see just how far we can take this combat. Overall, I was very pleasantly surprised with this game and will most likely be picking it up when it releases. So to give it an overall score, I gotta go 8 out of 10. It definitely isn't a From Software game and does have a little bit of roughing around the edges, but there is a ton of potential here, and I can't wait to see what the final game looks like. Anyways though guys, that's gonna pretty much do it for my review of the Lies of P demo. Let me know what you guys thought if you played it already, or if you're gonna go give it a try. I'm definitely gonna be following this game closely from here on out, and can't wait to see more. But if you enjoyed today's video, be sure to leave a like on it, and subscribe if you want to stay up to date on all things Elden Ring and From Software. But with all that, I will catch you in the next one.